Welcome to Pacific Steel. My name is Johnny Simmons, and I hope you'll join Al Perkins and myself for this hour-long exploration of some of the territory covered by Pacific Steel. Pacific Steel is actually vinyl from Pacific Arts Records, and it stars the pedal steel guitar. The pedal steel has been long stereotyped because of its close association with country music, but as you'll hear, Pacific Steel presents the instrument in a variety of frameworks that illustrate some of the possibilities beyond the stereotype. Al Perkins, who provides most of the commentary which follows, has been playing the instrument since he was a youngster and has played it on stage and in the studio with Stephen Stills and Manassas, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and Souther Hillman Foray. But that's getting slightly ahead of ourselves. The conversation begins with some credits and a description of the instrument and how it's played. Welcome to Pacific Steel.
It was like an idea that Michael Nesmith had. He had asked me to, after a tour, we'd done a tour down in Australia, and that's how I met Michael, and played some steel guitar on his live album and on the tour. And after the tour, well, he had called me up and had an idea to do an album with another old steel guitar friend of his, Rhodes. And so I took the cue and asked him if he would like to maybe do a collage, if it would be possible to logistically to get everybody together. So we did a collage of people playing specifically from the West Coast, steel guitar players from the West Coast. And we did ended up with 5 players on the album, and each person contributed 2 original tunes, with the exception of Red. Now he plays one tune that's written by Michael Nesmith, a song called Rio from the Photon Wing album.
Did you supervise the project? Let me ask you.
Yes, I did. I produced it and engineered it and played on it. So I got a lot of assistance from my wife. She helped with the photography and the design of the steel plate, and she was a great help. Contracts, all those things that you don't want to worry about, you know.
Let her worry about it.
And she did quite a good job, I think.
The 5 pedal steel players of Pacific Steel are Al Perkins, Sneaky Pete Kleinow, Dee Maness, Tom Brumley, and Red Rhodes. We'll hear something of the personal history of each, but first about the guitar itself. And I thought perhaps we ought to ask just sort of generally about the steel guitar, how it's played, how it's different.
Yeah, it brings back a memory when our Shiloh had done a troubadour hoot night once, and there was a real impressive-looking movie star out there that was sitting right by the stage, you know, and he came up, and had gray hair and things, and I know you're begging to know who it is, but my memory fails me again. So
well, I'll tell you what, why don't we make up a good story? It was Jimmy Stewart.
Okay, yeah, it was close to that, I think. But he came up to the stage and asked what that funny table was that I was playing. You know, what was I doing with that table up there, you know? He had never seen one before, and I'm sure some of the listeners think of it as that, but it's that funny table that you see on the country and western local shows. But actually what it is a guitar, multi-string guitar. They range from 6 to 12 strings, and they have a set of rods. It is a flat table-looking thing with the strings laterally strung, and you slide a steel bar up and down as you're watching it, the right-hand side, and pick with some.
So you're barring chords.
Barring chords with your left hand. With your right hand, then you pluck the strings with 3 picks, a thumb pick and two usually steel finger picks. And then to change the tone or to make a smooth transition to another chord, you have the pedals, which you actuate either by the left toe or foot, and the left and right knee. These levers are connected to rods that go through the body of the guitar, end up at the one end of it, and they pull on the string or release tension on the string in a graduated degree. In other words,
do they come to the end where you're barring or to the end where you're picking?
Where you're picking, they actuate on that end. Then the end where you bar It's like regular tuning pegs where you tune it to an open chord. And it can change chords. You can keep the bar or just play it in an open position and play many, many chords in just one position by just changing your pedal combinations. So there's many pedal combinations and chord combinations with using pedals. Now Jerry Byrd, one of the pioneers of the pedal steel guitar, does a lot of those moves without the use of pedals. I think he's living in Hawaii, and he plays in one of those hotels over there. And little do people know that the entertainment they're getting in one of those hotels is probably the greatest steel guitar player alive.
Have they evolved a lot of gadgets for pedal steel guitar sustaining and the equivalent of wah-wah and things like that?
Yeah, a few things that were designed for the regular guitar are easily used on the steel, like fuzz tones and wah-wahs and electronic devices. There's a thing called an E-bow, which Red Rhodes plays on another cut, not the one we'll hear today, but he plays a little section in there where it's just a kind of a sustained high-pitched string type noise. And what it is, it's a little magnet type thing that you just put over the pickup, the electronic pickup under the strings at the right end as you're sitting behind the steel. And you place that on there and you just strike a chord and you can move the bar around, but it just keeps singing, you know. He used that, and of course Sneaky used some synthesized work on his slower tune on the album.
Let me ask you a question that brings to mind, and that is, do you think that the steel guitar is a more versatile instrument than the regular guitar?
Boy, I think it is. I think it is.
I mean, I've heard that remark before.
Yeah, I think it is because Sneaky can make his guitar sound like a regular guitar as well as a pedal steel, or a new thing that they are using in some places, a pull string guitar, which is a regular guitar with a little pedal mechanism, if you will, on it. It's either actuated by a palm lever. You know, you push a lever with your palm and it stretches a string without you having to move it with your finger, or move your position on the fret, or it's actuated by a strap. The strap that, while you're standing up, it goes over your shoulder and connected to a lever instead of the guitar, and the weight of the guitar is balanced with this lever with springs, and then with a slight push on the neck as you're playing, it'll pull one string sharp.
Interesting.
And it's there's a guy who I invited to play on my two tunes, plays guitar, and he plays a couple of solos with this B-bender, it's called, or pull string guitar. And it's very interesting sound. It's not like the regular sound that you're used to hearing.
Al Perkins and Atrium from Pacific Steel. The next person we'd like to talk about a little bit on the Pacific Steel Company record is Sneaky Pete Kleinow. Perhaps I would think the one person on here with which rock fans are the most familiar.
I bet you're
his
right.
work with the Flying Burrito Brothers.
He's a very innovative player, and he's I caught in one of the magazines here, trade magazines. He's called Mr. Originality among the steel players sometimes, because he makes a lot of different sounds with his steel guitar. Sometimes he does string parts, sometimes he does horn parts and synthesized type sounds, with it. So he's very creative and very innovative with it.
He, I assume, played with country bands a long time before the Burritos knocked on his door.
Yeah. That steel guitar teacher we were talking about, his name was Al Petty. I visited him once on a bus, like when I was 11 years old, out to San Diego, and he was playing with a guy named Smokey Rogers down there, and had one of the only country western TV shows, I guess, that they had down in San Diego. And I learned that Sneaky played for him too. I think that's the same guy, the same Smokey Rogers that Sneaky played for too. So he's been playing country music for a long time. And of course his involvement with the Burrito Brothers, with Graham Parsons, he was very innovative there with some new sounds.
Graham Parsons seems to be a real seminal personality.
That's right. He's like, I sort of think of him as country rock's Johnny Cash, and that he's sort of lived a life that was, he's full of heartaches and things, and it came across with his singing. He sung about his life, and he has a lot of emotion in his songs, and he's greatly missed now.
Do you think it's one thing that occurs about you, I'm thinking of, and Graham Parsons as well? It takes a southern boy to come to the urban area and bring that country music, that it couldn't arise out of somebody who grew up on the concrete.
I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. I think somebody has to almost live that type of life to really present it to other people.
Sneaky Pete's still playing with the Burritos, isn't he?
I think he does. He stopped traveling for a while. He'd like to stay at home with his family. I can't blame him there. But he's out on the road again with the Burritos, and gosh, they've done Japan and Europe, and there's a tremendous following. I don't know if you realize it, Johnny, but in Holland and Sweden and Australia and now in Japan, tremendous following of country rock and straight country artists.
Would you say his influence on you?
When I took that position, his vacated position there with the Burritos for a time, I had to listen to all their songs, and they gave me the records and things, and I must say my performance on that live album, particularly on Devil in Disguise, is greatly influenced by Sneaky and by Jimi Hendrix too.
That's an interesting combination of people. Do you all listen to one another a lot? Do you spend time at home listening to steel guitar records, seeing what other people are doing?
I used to, especially when I came back on the scene playing steel guitar, because I needed to know technique and things. But gosh, it seems like all of us, we were comparing notes on this, and it seems like all of us have a hard time finding any time to practice, even much less listen to the other things. But when we hear something on the radio that knocks us out, we make a point to get it, and find out what happened there.
Sneaky Pete Kleinow and a piece of Pacific Steel called Spittin' Image. Let's talk a little bit about Dee Maness, who has got quite a career of his own. You know a little bit about it?
I sure do, Johnny. He's probably well known for being innovative in introducing steel guitar in country music with long hair type country music, I should say. With the Byrds, the Sweetheart of the Rodeo album, he was one of the two players on that album, which has got a lot of nice things said about it, and a turning point too for a lot of groups. He's played for many session people and many recording artists. Right now, currently, he's over in Europe with Johnny Duncan, a country player, singer, and the guy I keep
Ray Stevens.
Ray Stevens, yeah, Ray Stevens. He's played with them, and gosh, a lot of other people. I'm sorry.
I believe he toured with Ann Murray's band.
Yes, he did. He sure did. I think so. And he's always been a fine player. He's worked a lot at the Palomino. Got lots of practice.
Is he a Southern Californian, or is he an immigrant like yourself?
You know, I don't really know. I as far as I know, he's been in California a long time, and he sure plays well. He's a good technician. He's got a couple of good songs on here too, as I might add.
Dee Maness steppin' with one called Fat and Sassy from Pacific Steel. Next we talk to Al Perkins at length about his career. So maybe we got to talk just a little bit about yourself.
I was a Texas, raised in Texas, a Texan, and my dad was, he drove a truck in Texas, oil field, worked in the oil field, and I learned how to play Hawaiian steel guitar first.
Is that the first instrument you picked up was a steel guitar, and you didn't start with other kind of guitar or anything?
Nothing else. In fact, a guy came by our house who I've heard this spoken of many times in other cities. It must have been the same guy, going by and saying, would your son or daughter like to take Hawaiian steel guitar lessons, It's like the little horse. You see these little pictures, of
right,
everybody.
They come by and take your
picture
picture on the horse.
Yeah, take a picture on the horse. It's about the
same
same
thing. So they took your picture on a Hawaiian steel guitar, huh?
Right. And they found out that I wasn't learning I was memorizing the tunes as they would give them to us and not going home and learning how to read the notes,
Mm-hmm.
And they put me in a private class, and from there he started taking me around with him. The teacher did. He played in a country band locally in TV and radio and jamborees. We called the concerts jamborees in the country language anyway. And he'd take me around, and I would do a guest shot, with the band, a little
How
bitty
old were you
guy.
then?
I was about 9 or 10, and it was like the late 50s, and I really had a good time, doing that with him. I didn't know anything else really. I just learned how to play, and he thought I had a good ear and would teach me a tune or two to play, and I'd do it, and people really love it.
And this was a lap steel guitar.
This was a
right?
lap steel.
No pedals or anything like that.
No pedals at all.
When did you see your first pedals?
Gosh, it was along about 58 or 9. I first heard Bud Isaacs on the radio playing a waltz. It was called "The Waltz You Saved for Me," and it was the first thing I ever heard, and I thought it was like angels singing. I just really enjoyed the sound of that instrument. But I knew it was a steel guitar, but I couldn't figure out how he was making all those sounds and changes, because it was mechanical pedals, as I learned later. So my dad, being a truck driver, saw to it that the first pedal steel that came in that I was able to get, but it cost $1,000. Anyway, he saw to it that I got the steel guitar, and of course there wasn't any teachers to tell you, well, this is the way you set it up, and of course it didn't come set up that way. So you just sort of had to wing it, and I spent a lot of hours underneath the thing, changing cables and trying different
Trying to figure out how it worked. You might have wound up knowing the instrument better as a result.
I think probably most of us did at long about that time. I compared notes with Tom Brumley and a couple of the other players, and we all ended up with the basic same idea of how he was doing that, the basic pedal format,
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, it's still a standard setup. There's just one or two variations, that you use, but basically it's still the same as we all were trying to copy Bud Isaacs,
How old were you when the pedal steel became the instrument you played?
I guess that was along about, I must have been about 15 or 16, somewhere around that age, I guess. And me having the only pedal steel guitar in the country at that time, in West Texas, well, the country bands would want me to come out and play. I was a little guy and playing on stage at the Moose Lodge and the Elks Lodge and whatever, And so I had a great time, early age, playing for people and doing shows and things like that, and it was really a lot of fun.
Lost your intimidation of being in front of an audience rather
guess
early
so.
on, I would suspect.
I guess so. I've never been able to do a book report to this day, but
But you can play it in front of thousands
right.
of people. Seems to balance out. And you also play the electric guitar,
Yes, I do.
the regular, in quotes, electric
That's
guitar. When
right.
did you pick that up?
Well, Johnny, about the time I was playing the steel guitar, the pedal steel guitar, most of the kids my age were just totally engulfed in rock and roll. By the late 50s, that was like the thing. And so rather than being intimidated or feeling, like a outsider, I wanted to, play or enjoy that type of music. At the time, I didn't know how to relate to Western swing, which I call it was like country jazz. You'd change a chord every time you'd hit the strings just about, and it was confusing to me. and I never did really get into it. So it sort of helped me convince myself that I needed to get with my own crowd for a change to playing with the older guys. So I sold the steel guitar, my pedal steel guitar, and I bought a bigger amplifier and a Stratocaster guitar, and my dad showed me a few chords, you know. He didn't show me the chords to get me to stop playing steel, mind you, but he showed me earlier to his dismay. And so I started playing the electric guitar, playing rock and roll, and played that for about 6 or 7 years. I was totally off of the steel guitar.
So this takes you from your mid-teens to your early 20s.
Yeah, and this was in the mid-60s, 66, 67, something like that, you know. And through a chain of events, I ended up playing with a show group in Texas that knew I played steel guitar at one time, and it wouldn't anything suit them better than to buy me a little pedal steel guitar and do some spots on the show, you know, where we would do a novelty tune. So a group came around the stage all the time when they were in town. They lived up in East Texas. We were playing in Dallas at the time at a club, and group's name was Shiloh, and or was to be soon called Shiloh. And they were into something weird at that time, I'll tell you. It was, I thought it was weird. Anyway, they were into Linda Ronstadt. This is like the late 60s. They were into Linda Ronstadt, Dillard and Clark Expedition, the Burrito Brothers, Sweetheart the Rodeo album, International Submarine Band by Graham Parsons, some of those experimentations of country rock, you know, early things. And I said, why in the world, you guys, I mean, the thing that's happening now is Jimi Hendrix and Cream and the whole thing, and why are you guys into country music of all things? And they just felt like it was just the purest thing that they could express themselves with, you know, being country guys themselves. And Kenny Rogers had told the group that he'd like to produce the group out in California, and I'd always wanted to do recording rather than club jobs. So I took the invitation to go up and play with them one weekend up in the woods. They had a little rehearsal house out in the middle of nowhere there off the highway, and they got in there and just played music, and they had a bunch of good original tunes, and it just felt like coming home.
Something felt right about it.
Something felt right. I mean, I almost cried when I sat down and played some of the tunes with them. I'd never heard these tunes, some of them off the Sweetheart the Rodeo album, and they asked me to play steel, and they'd stop and they'd just, you know, it says, well, you gotta start playing with us, or that's it, you know.
So you went to California with them?
Went to California with them and did an album. Kenny produced an album for us on Amos Records. It's a collector's item, I think. Now it's a Shiloh album, along with another album of some friends of ours now. Glenn Fry and J.D. Souther they were the other group on this little label. So we tried to make the group, you know, into a working situation, and just kind of starved in the process. We did one concert, I think, and so the first offer I got was to any new steel guitar player, somebody who played steel in L.A. back then, they knew when you crossed the border, I think, you know. So I got some calls. Kenny helped me a lot and let me play on some first edition things. Then I got a call from the Burrito Brothers manager saying that Sneaky Pete didn't want to travel anymore at the present time anyway, and they just finished their third album. I think it was the one with Rick Roberts on it. So I went out and auditioned and got the job and started traveling with Chris and Bernie and some of those guys. And about the middle of the year that I started traveling with them, the drummer from Shiloh and Bernie from the Burrito Brothers and Glenn Fry from Long Branch Penny Whistle and Randy Meisner from Rick Nell became the Eagles, and that's where they spawned from. And so they became real successful quick, and I traveled with the Burrito Brothers and long enough to make that live album, which is about almost a year.
On which you play both pedal steel and electric guitar.
Yeah, it's not credited that I play the guitar on that, but a matter of deduction, you can tell if what happened to the steel guitar? Who's playing the lead? You know,
Right.
I guess. But
After the Burritos tour, was Manassas with Stephen Stills the next thing that you did?
yes, we met Stephen. He was traveling up in the east with Memphis Horns, and Mike Clark was the drummer in the Burrito Brothers, held over from the Byrds, and he's a great talker. He could get us. He could talk the horns off a brass billy goat. You know, he could really talk. And he got us into this concert. And then after we got into the concert, he got us backstage. You know, and I was just tagging along because all this stuff was new to me anyway. And so we went backstage, and of course, Chris, when he was in the Byrds, was instrumental in helping Stephen and Richie Furay and a bunch of those in the Springfield get started back in Southern California. So. The Burritos weren't real. They were still an underground group, and I love their following. I really cherish all the fans that follow that music and really love and attend. But Chris was really a little despondent about trying to make that group into a bigger group, you know, a more accepted group in country rock. So he was, I guess, sharing that with Stephen, and Stephen had an idea to combine some country music in the next album that he was planning, and so he asked us if we'd come down on our days off from touring down to Miami at Criteria and record on an album with him and see what happened. So the first week we took, I think, Rick Roberts down and myself and Byron Berline, and we went down there and played, Chris and I, and it turned out so well that he asked us to come back the next week. We had to go back in the East and play some more gigs, and then we had some more time off. So he said, well, come on down, we'll fly you down. And at the end of that week, they had proposed a group, you know, Dallas, and he had talked it over, and Paul Harris and Fuzzy Samuels, and they asked Chris and I to join the group. That was very enticing for Chris, because he felt like maybe, well, here we can present some country music and have a good time at it, and maybe we'll have a little larger audience to help get it over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we took him up on the offer, and we did that for a couple of years, and everybody started going different ways. So I stuck with Chris in the third group called Sally Hillman Furay, and we didn't do quite as much country music in that group, but I still played about 50% steel and 50% guitar, and then out of that group, the only thing I really toured with was Michael Nesmith's.
And that was Australia only?
Australia.
Or?
That was Australia only.
So you're on the live at the Palais record?
Yes,
Playing both once
Playing
again.
both. We really had a good time there. It's a live story. I hope that's not too much.
Al Perkins, and another piece of Pacific Steel entitled Salty Sultry. One of the other people involved is Tom Brumley, who, like Sneaky Pete, is a little bit older than certainly yourself and Dee Maness.
Mm-hmm.
He started out with Buck Owens, or did he work before that? Or,
I'm sure he did work before that. The first thing of notoriety was with Buck Owens. Tom was just awarded a plaque for an old performance, a solo performance in the middle of a vocal tune that he performed with Buck Owens in a song called Together Again. And that's changed a lot of steel players' thinking back then about what to do with pedals. It seemed like he really was gifted with a new approach. And at that time, the story has it that Buddy Emmons was
very famous steel player in his own right.
He sure is, and he was beginning to want to play bass with Roger Miller or something to that effect. Anyway, to quit playing steel because he felt like the steel had been exploited about as far as it could go. And he heard this on the radio, and he said, "Wait a minute, says there's something more to this." And in fact, he influenced me when, along about the time the boys from Shiloh were standing around the bandstand. The most influential record I could say on my return to the steel was a song called "Easy to Be Free" that he cut with Rick Nelson.
Played with Buck Owens for a good long while, and now is with Rick Nelson?
Now he's with Rick Nelson, and Rick's giving him a lifetime job, as far as I know, as long as he wants to play with him.
Which leaves him free, I guess, to do some session work
Yes,
and things like that. It says here on the back of the LP that some of his session credits include Burton Cummings and Rod Stewart.
Yeah, he does get a lot of demand from people who really respect the instrument, and since this album was recorded, he's taken over the ZB Guitar Company, Steel Guitar Company, which is the make that he plays, and he's taken it to Texas, around Willie Nelson land, and he's living there with his family, and his boys are helping him get the Steel Guitar Company together, and certainly Tom is a master at his instrument.
Tom Brumley at the pedal steel guitar and Arrowhead from Pacific Steel. Well, let's talk a little bit about Red Rhodes, the fifth and final artist here on Pacific Steel. Red Rhodes, he's got to be one of the innovators on the instrument.
He sure is. He played with Michael Nesmith in the first national band, maybe even in the second national band. There's a couple of those.
Right.
Don't think it got to the third, but
He's working on it.
he's working on it. But Red's known all over the country for his playing and stylized ability. And well, he has a store down in L.A. and he's heavily into technology, improving technology for the steel guitar and
A
for
store that sells steel guitar products. And
it does, and guitar and regular
just
guitar.
A music store in
And
general.
he repairs,
Store.
he repairs amps. He does whiz-bang jobs on electronic things. He was an electronic engineer to begin with, I think. Red's performing a song called Rio on this album, and the only tune that he didn't write, or the players didn't write, it was written by Michael Nesmith, and song is done very well in Australia. Is the reason we went down to tour with Michael is because
The
the
song Rio was a hit for
was a
him.
hit, yeah. So Red's performing this, and the interesting thing about Red's performance here is that he not only plays the steel guitar, but he's playing a 10-string dobro, and it's tuned, interestingly enough, to a tuning that he's sort of invented from Jerry Byrds' ideas. He's come up with, I think he calls it a diatonic tuning, not to be confused with dietetic. That's one of his jokes.
Red Rhodes and Michael Nesmith's Rio from Pacific Steel.
Takes a long time to really get it together on a steel guitar, like a violin or something. You know, I don't think I'd want to learn how to play it if I started from scratch.
You had choice, huh? At the time, it seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, right.
Of course, at the time, it was a little lap guitar. What was it?
Yeah.
Foot and a half long that you
That
played
is
at first?
something. Yeah, about 2 at the most. And I remember, came home from school one day. I had this acoustic Hawaiian guitar that they rent you know, for these Hawaiian guitar lessons.
Was that like a dobro? Did it have a
Yeah,
metal resonator?
it didn't have the metal resonator, but it was like a regular acoustic guitar turned upside down with higher strings were higher off the fretboard, so you could move the bar along without it scraping the frets.
Mm-hmm.
Remember coming home from school, and my dad, bless him, he had a brand new electric lay in your lap kind, you know. Pedals weren't out yet, but he had a new electric Oahu, that was the name of it. He had a new amplifier and a new guitar sitting there. Boy, that was a big thrill for me to come home from school and see that there.
It's still right there in your mind's eye.
Yeah, I can almost smell the newness of it, you know.
Right, so when anybody asks, his daddy got him in all this trouble.
That's right.
Dee Maness stealing sprightly through J.D.'s Boogie, our final piece of Pacific Steel. Thanks to Al Perkins for his time and information, to No Hoax for production, and to you for opening your ears to Pacific Steel. Pacific Steel, forged by 5 masters on the strings of the pedal steel guitar. Pacific Steel.